Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Do Friday. Hey, Tom.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I cannot complain. It's Friday morning. I'm wrapping up a conference in Austin and ready to head back to Baltimore. So all is well.
You spoke yesterday to a group of what, about 100 some odd people?
Yeah,
right?
there were about 20 people in the room and another 15 or 20 online. So it was.
Tell us how it went.
I think it went well. It was, it's one of those things where sometimes, it's hard to judge. I think you give it some time and some perspective and you're able to go back. I mean, I felt like I got through what I wanted to say. I probably could have gone another 5 or 10 minutes longer, but I think that's better than having gone 5 or 10 minutes too long, where people would have been like, okay, it's time to wrap up. I think it's always interesting when you're up on stage, and you have people, it's that step of, okay, how did it go? And I think I got to the point, it's interesting. I think our conversations about trying not to judge really have helped. I got to the point, I think yesterday morning or the day before, where it was about doing it. And obviously I took time and focused on it. I made a lot of changes and some thoughts and incorporated some things from the night before. And so that all I thought went well. And
were you all in?
Oh, I was definitely all in.
How did you know?
I think there's something about that feeling you get when things seem to just flow, if that makes sense. And I think especially with speaking, like sometimes I get up on when you're speaking to a group, it doesn't flow the way you thought. And it's interesting, you and I talked about this beforehand, the value of doing a presentation like that with slides, PowerPoint, or not. And honestly, I probably could have done it without the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint, except for the fact that it gave me the chance to go back to the podium briefly and advance the slide so that I could just take a quick glance at my notes, I think provided a little more comfort. Could I have done it without that? Likely. And I think that's where I kind of knew that I was all in, is that it felt like it had a smooth flow, and I didn't get to the point where I was stumbling for my words.
Okay.
And I think it was more about being all in the topic that I was talking about and the process that we've talked about, about knowledge, experience, and perspective, about taking the next step, about how to look at opportunities or opportunities from obstacles. It's a lot of those conversations that we have on a daily basis made it a lot easier to stand up there and talk about them because it was something that was very comfortable to me. And I think that.
And also authentic, right?
Correct. It reminded me that was what was real for me. And that made it much more comfortable to do.
Do you think it was what you shared with those people was real to them as you explained it to them? Or was it something where they were really being thrown out of their comfort zone? Because this is part of being all in.
Sure.
When we're all in, we face, whether we like it or not, we're on stage every day. You were on a stage yesterday in front of 100 some odd people in Austin, but you're on stage every time you make a call to a client, every time you make a call to a prospect, every time you send an email.
Yeah.
You're auditioning for that next gig.
Yeah, it was great. I had a number of people come up to me and, said they appreciated my remarks, and it made them think, which I think is all that I want to do. Hopefully that what I provided gave them a chance to evaluate and see if it impacts what's real for them. And, I think part of it, the crowd was a very It was an older group, a little bit on the older age, it trended older, people who have been in longtime family businesses. And so I think this was information that they maybe think about, but not very often. And I think they are so focused on what they do that sometimes it's hard for them to get out and see what are the other sides of it. But a number of them came up and were like, that's something that even the coordinator of the conference was like, this is something that I could, as you were speaking, I could be like, yeah, I can see that. That's something I ought to think about. And so I think, as I felt comfortable, even if 20 people in the room were like, that was a waste of time. Right. I was to the point where that wasn't going to bother me, that was just a part of, I'm sharing what's real to me. And they may or may not approve, and they may or may not like it, or they may or may not agree. And it still may have an impact some point, somewhere down the road. It's kind of like this show. Every day we try to provide that one thing that sometimes will resonate completely with people. And other times we'll be like, oh, okay. I'm not sure that I'm there, or I already had that feeling or that sense. And I think that to me is the beauty of it, is that we get a chance to share what we think. And others can decide if they want to comment, if they want to add a comment that takes it in a different direction, or they want to share their one thing. And that provides a broader perspective on the topic that we're discussing, which has been all in this week.
As we talk about being all in, Tom, and you said you got to a place where you were comfortable, and it wasn't that you didn't care what they were thinking, right? Because when you're speaking, you have to be paying attention to your audience. Mm-hmm. But and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm curious, did you feel like you got to a place where this was what you had to share regardless of how the reception was to it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I was, again, I think I'm so all in on this, some of the concepts, mm-hmm. That I shared again earlier. And I think because of that, I felt very confident in, I'm just going to share what I'm going to share, and
take it or leave it.
Correct. And again, not good or bad, right or wrong, just this is what I have to share. And I believe I delivered it in a way that was at least enjoyable. Enjoyable is the wrong word. I don't think I was boring. I could have been very boring to someone, but it wasn't, here's a slide, let me read off a slide. I barely looked at the slides. I knew what the slides said, and they were very simple. It was a word. It was a simple sentence. It was something that just was an opportunity for me to remind myself of what the next step was, and allow them to be more focused on me and what I was saying rather than was up on the screen. It was interesting. Later in the day, someone gave a presentation, and it was like a market report. And you talk about eye chart graphs, and it would come up and
I know exactly what you mean. I can see it as clear as day. Yep.
Yeah. And I think that's, and again, that's fine. That has a chance to have an impact in a different way. I just felt like it had the opportunity for them to really listen, if they wanted to the message that I was sharing, not be torn between, I've got to look at this screen that was a little off to my right, rather than listen and focus on me and what I was saying.
As you think about being all in, as you gave that presentation, was it coming from your mind more or your heart more? And if it was one or the other, how do you know that distinction, and what did it feel like? Wow. Aren't you sorry we didn't plan this one out better? Because I'm throwing hardballs at you today.
Well, it's a really good question to ask.
Thank you.
I think that, I don't know. I think it's a combination, and I don't think I know the reason why. I think from my mind, because this is the way I've been thinking, and from my heart, because I was willing to incorporate some things into it that were very recent and very almost personal to some of the people in the room.
Not in a negative way.
No, as a way of showing that this wasn't just a canned speech.
Right.
I started my remarks by talking about the dinner we had the night before with the board and the coordinator, and incorporating that into a part of it. And then I picked another couple of places where it was really about them and their industry and some of the challenges that they face. And I think that, to me, came from a place of the heart where it isn't just, let me just stand up here and the message I have is right. And I don't really need to incorporate anything else into it. Let me share. And really what I was trying to share was, again, a process by which they could go from an obstacle to a potential opportunity to a goal to help them move to where they want to be. And I think our conversations about celebrations definitely was from the heart. We talk about that all the time. And I have a feeling that's an industry that doesn't do spend a lot of time celebrating. I think they celebrate. They like to get together and celebrate. There's no doubt about that. And it's not about the things that they daily accomplish within their organizations. And, again, I firmly, and you firmly believe in that. And so that was definitely from a place of the heart where I felt like this is something that could, maybe have a little bit more of an impact on who and what they are, because I would imagine not a lot of people stand up there and talk about celebrating and celebrating in that way based on the actions that we take. So I guess because the fact that it was both from my head and from my heart, that I believe it was all in.
What showed me that you were all in, Tom, was yesterday afternoon, you and I had 5-6 minute discussion about it. Just, hey, how'd it go? What was it like? Blah, blah, blah. And in that discussion, you went right into, this is what worked well. This is what I might improve next time. Here's some things. And you were right into it, which led me to believe that, one, you were thinking it through and you were looking at what can I take from this experience so next time I'm in a similar situation, I can achieve my goals even better. You didn't say, I was great, I was horrible. There was no evaluation of that. And then there was, here are things I would do to improve it. I could have done this. I could have done this. I didn't think about these things. And I think that to me is truly the biggest sign of being all in, is you could step away from it a little bit and start to analyze it and say, hey, okay, here were the real strengths. If I were in that audience, I would have liked these things, this way resonated, but I should have pushed on this a little more. And that's hard to do. I don't think, maybe you could have done it yourself in the hotel room last night, but I think having me to bounce that off of made it helpful because, you and I have talked about this presentation, 10 times probably?
Oh, at least. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I was all in on your success. All day yesterday, I was like chomping at the bit all day. Oh, Tom's got to be on stage now. Oh, I wonder how it's going. Oh, why didn't I talk them into letting me listen in? I bet I could have finagled that if I had tried.
I thought, actually, I did think about that. That might have been that would have been an interesting, and what was unique is that unlike, there's a lot of different ways that you present. And unlike many of the presentations I've done where the lights are on, it's, you're not necessarily on a stage, you're kind of in amongst everyone. And again, with everything going on with COVID, there was I had a lot less comfort, and I don't think they were expecting you to be able to walk through the crowd, which is something that I enjoy to do, not even through the crowd, but like being fairly close to people so they feel like they're a part of it. It was a little more like they had stage lights on and you were on a platform stage. And I think that's a different type of presentation where the opportunity for interaction and engagement is a little different. And so I think that the presentation is also a little different.
And if you've been listening to this and watching this and going, this doesn't apply to me, I would tell you that everything we're talking about applies to all of us in all of our encounters. So whether you're like Tom standing on a stage with big lights and the lavalier microphone, giving a presentation, or you're going into someone's office and they put you in the conference room. And while it may not feel like the spotlight is on you, when those 3 people come in and you're across the table from 3 people, you are doing a presentation. And I think more and more what we're seeing, and this is a real trend, I think, of the last 4 or 5, 6 years maybe, is that there's a need to be authentic. Mm-hmm. And we didn't really talk about it. I wish we had the word authentic in our week of All In, because I think that's a really important word. And maybe that's a topic for next week in terms of being authentic. But to me, what you described doing yesterday was sharing something you believe in, sharing something that you've thought through a lot, hours and hours of thought, because I know we've done a lot of it together, and something that you genuinely believed could be of value to those who chose that opportunity. But what I don't hear you saying today is, I spoke to 121 people and not all 121 people have bought from me. Now, let's be honest, Tom. I think it's fair to ask this question. How many people bought something from you yesterday afternoon after you gave this presentation? Because there's certainly a small sales component to this, right?
Sure.
How many?
0.
Okay.
One could have. Okay. One offered to buy one of the books, but he was somebody who I spent a lot of time with the night before at dinner, and he was very welcoming and accommodating. And I was like, why don't you just take it? I appreciate it. He was the first person to come up to me afterwards, which I appreciated. And so I was like, so really 0.
Okay. You don't seem bothered by that today. No,
not necessarily. Well, I think that's...
And you don't feel like you wasted your trip, right? Because, you left your house. There was some cost. I don't get the sense that this was a do or die. Give the presentation yesterday. Everyone better sign with me or I'm a failure.
What was interesting is I used an example, actually, from one of our Ring of Renegade members about how they were resilient, because that was the topic of the conference. And, someone asked a question about their process. And it really came down to, they were resilient because they kept planting seeds. And they knew that what I was doing today wasn't necessarily going to result in a sale, in revenue, in, a new client, a new customer, whatever the case might be, that it was about planting seeds. That maybe, there was the possibility somebody could have walked up there afterwards and said, hey, you know what, do you have 15 minutes? I liked what you were saying. I'd like to talk with you more about it. Turned into a laser solution session that turned into, wow, you know what, I think you could really come in and help me and my company. I'd like to become a client. What does that look like? So that could have happened. And it may happen somewhere further down the road. And I think I was lasered into offering value. And then let's see what happens.
So it's possible to be all in and not make a sale every time you're in front of a person or people.
Sure. Well, I think we do it, I hope that we do it often. If you're leading a meeting with your team or you're having a one-on-one conversation with your employee, I hope that you are all in so that you are present for where they're at, what you want to say, and that, again, you're saying things from your head and your heart as a way to show that you are actively interested in who they are, what the progress they're trying to make. And I think that's how it relates. We're always on stage, whether we're in a large group, whether, as you said, standing on it, it is a part of who we are. It is a presentation. We present ourselves every time we leave the house. Actually, every time we get up, we just present ourselves to the people in our houses a lot more. And every day we go in, we go to be with our staff, our employees, our clients, we are presenting. And they are evaluating that presentation on a regular basis. And so I think, it's something that for those who are uncomfortable speaking on a stage, that might be something to think about. It that if you are all in, you're presenting all the time. You're right. Sharing who and what you are, what's real for you on a regular basis.
Nice. So, Tom, you've been real helpful answering all these questions that I've been firing at you. What's your one thing today in terms of wrapping up this whole week of being all in? What's your thought? I know you've had a real experience this week, so.
Well, what I thought you were going to say is because I've asked you all these questions that I'll do the one thing, and that's okay. So I'll still offer it.
I could do that if you'd like.
No, it's all right. You asked, so I will answer.
Right.
I think being all in to me is that you are present and actively engaged for whatever you believe is the right purpose at that time. For me, I know it's about offering value. And that's what's real for me, is that I am in every engagement as much as I possibly can, that I am all in and present. And I think that to me is really what I take away from being all in, is that I firmly believe in what I'm saying. That's why the presentation was more comfortable for me, because I wasn't sharing things that I didn't necessarily believe in. You know, I was sharing something that I feel like has had a significant impact for me, and that it might have a significant or any impact on someone else. And I think that's to me is being all in, as you get to that point where you're fully committed and fully present in whatever you're offering.
I like that. I'm going to add to it that being all in doesn't mean you always make a sale every time you're in front of someone, because I think being all in is I want to be focused on what I'm doing. I want to be committed to what I'm doing I believe in what I'm doing. I'm authentic as I present this, whether you're in front of a client or in front of a large group like you were. But you can't guarantee that, a marker of all in isn't, did I make the sale or not? Because often I find when I'm truly all in, it's not a sales situation. It's often a great referral to someone who becomes an even better opportunity.
Well, and I think when you're in that light, the sales tend to happen. Like, it wouldn't surprise me at the end of this, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. Someone calling up, even if it's the coordinator saying, "Hey, you know what? People really enjoyed it. We'd love to have you come back next year."
Yep.
That might be what the value is that it showed for someone.
Awesome. Well, Tom, this has been great. I appreciate you answering all my questions. I hope you have a safe flight back this afternoon, right?
Yes, later this afternoon.
Okay. Hope it's a safe flight and not real crowded. Why don't you close us up today, because you button it up better than I do.
Well, thank you. I hope that you have enjoyed this conversation, this kind of exploration into what we thought was all in, as it related to a direct situation that I was as a part of. And I'm sure as you're thinking about it, if you have thoughts or questions, please feel free to put them in the comments, because being all in is a tough conversation. It's a question that we need to ask ourselves, and at the same time, not judge where we are and what we are. Try to understand it. So if this is a conversation that you enjoy, please join us. We're having these all the time in our Ring of Renegades Facebook group. It's easy to join. Just go to Facebook, search for Ring of Renegades, and you can ask to be a part of the group. It is a private group, so you do have to ask. And really, all we're asking for is, why are you a renegade? So when you share that, you can become a part of our growing group of people trying to find their next step along their own unique pathway to success. So please, we hope we will join you then. If not, have a great weekend. We'll see you inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group this weekend, where you can share why you're all in. Otherwise, we'll see you Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, for our next edition of today's Antidote. And here's some more information about that Facebook group. Have a great weekend.
Carving your own path is tough. You want and need a community to offer you insights and advice, share inspiration, provide support, and save you time and money. But where do you find all that? Here's the easy answer: the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, where leaders, entrepreneurs, and business owners identify their next steps. Here's some of what you will find at the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. Just go to ringofrenegades.com and join today. Find and accomplish those next steps.